Hi everyone, it's Mody's Fan here with our 100 subscriber review special, and kind of doing this unscripted, this opening, but yeah, we're here. So again, I want to apologize for being late with the Q&A and for this, but yeah, I was trying to decide what to do for the video, and I had a couple suggestions which I put out on an Instagram story, and I had people ask what they wanted to see. I had some suggestions like Shattered Dimensions and Edge of Time, which were really good suggestions, even though I just decided, I had plans for those games in the future. And another suggestion I had was Injustice 2, which interesting, but I just want to review the first Injustice game first. So I was going through my games, and I was going through just some other stuff I was looking at, and I'm like, hey, I've been meaning to start a series about, revisiting certain reviews and whatnot, and I had a couple games in mind that were of the Bat and Spider variety, but I decided that I'd kind of go in a different direction and do something just completely different. So I decided on this game we're going to talk about today, and so yeah, without further delay, let me welcome you to my new playlist, which I'll be naming this. Cue the intro. My boy Iron Man. Been a bit since I thought about you. Really looking forward to that new game you have coming out, but in the meantime, let's talk about something that I've already spent a hefty amount of time talking about. The video is 7 minutes long? Could have sworn it was longer than that. Anyway, since we're on the subject, Iron Man the tie-in game was something that I had my enjoyment from, but the issues reared their ugly heads in and sort of took from the experience. Just from watching the video, it seemed like I was too easy on it while being too harsh at the same time. Besides the gameplay and the addition of some cool comic outfits, everything else didn't really tickle my fancy, resulting in a game which I didn't recommend while feeling indifferent towards it. I'm a weird guy when it comes to my enjoyment of things. Go watch my Superman Returns video for another example of this. Even with all that, I was excited to get back into this game, but before we move on, context! With the Marvel Cinematic Universe gearing up to wow audiences, we were still in the era of video games based on media. In anticipation, Sega signed a deal with Marvel to work on 4 titles. This not only included Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, which were releasing that next year, but also Captain America and Thor afterwards, which would turn into Thor God of Thunder and Captain America Super Soldier. As expected, most of these didn't really land in the eyes of gamers, with Captain America somehow being the best of the bunch. So with that, let's go back and see if I still feel the same after this experience, or if I feel differently. Well, I guess there's nothing else to do but start the video proper. So as far as the story, it's about the same for me. It's a version of the movie's plot, and I'm just not feeling it. Besides the 10 rings, he's just fighting more enemies, which includes AIM and the Maggia crime family from Spider-Man PS4. It would make sense for Stain to be working with these people, but other than that, it doesn't take away from how annoying this man is. From the moment you meet him, his unlikability is on full display, and it's even more apparent here that he's destined to be a supervillain by the end. At least in the movie, he had a facade that made you enjoy his company at first. As far as the other characters, Rhodey and Pepper add nothing really. After one conversation, Rhodes is just okay being your guy in the chair, and Potts is just there to scream in your ear and get kidnapped at some point. Tony just kinda stays the same and never develops. After the cave, he's just a dick the whole game, and you're wondering why his friends didn't leave his ass the first chance they had. There's supposed to be this message about how Tony could use his newfound power to help more than just himself, but by the time this point happens, I just don't give a shit. At least with every other version of the character, including the very movie this is based on, there's a clear switch that's flipped for him to be a better person. Here, it's kind of a thing, but he's just going to treat everybody he knows like crap along the way. So in short, the plot did nothing for me, and this playthrough made me like it less somehow. It takes a story that makes an irredeemable bastard that turns into a good person with a heart, and just makes him a piece of shit the whole time. Everything was just a mess, and don't get me started on the voice acting.
Tony?
You shouldn't be in here.
And you shouldn't be off risking your life.
And how do you know what I've been doing?
Tony, I know. You're gonna get yourself killed. Please stop it.
Okay, I promise. I'll stop. I'll put my head in the sand, stick out my ass, and not think about what's going on around us.
Alright, let's talk about the gameplay. It's still fun. Being able to fly around and shoot lasers at enemies is very enjoyable, and it makes me feel like Iron Man more than any other game has up until this point. We'll see with this one. The flight controls are still a blast. Boosting at top speeds and moving around like a miniature fighter jet is just cool. Like I said before, it can be a bit disorienting initially, and I noticed turns were a little stiffer this time around. But those didn't really detract from the experience, and it was almost like riding a bike with how quick I was able to get back in the zone. Combat was interesting this go around. For the repulsors, it was about the same as before, but some other things I happened to notice changed this time. Firstly, missiles were a huge help, and I used them just as much as the repulsors. The Unibeam was more useful as well, but that was mainly reserved for bosses and the odd side activity here and there. I gave criticism last time over diverting resources to weapons, thrusters, etc., but to my shock, I actually noticed they did something this playthrough. I didn't take advantage of all of them, mainly the melee slot, but adding some extra firepower really did come in handy. The upgrades sure helped too, with the extra health and the rapid fire missiles. Only things I really didn't do this time was the ground combat and ripping tanks and helicopters to shreds. Even catching missiles I didn't bother with, and that was one of my favorite things to pull off. I did do it a couple times. When the frame rate would let me anyway. Guess I should have noted this earlier, but I'm playing the PlayStation 3 version for reasons I'll mention later, but if you couldn't tell from the last video, the game does not run at 60 FPS like the 360 version. It stays at 30, which is fine, but at some points it does take massive hits, mainly when there's tons of enemies on screen and also bullets and lasers flying at you. Also, while we're on the subject, visually the game looks worse here. Textures are even more low res and everything has this ugly blur to it. It didn't hurt my enjoyment of the game, and you could play it just fine, but that won't save you from the repetitive mission structure. Every level is go to orange objective and blow it up. It helps that most of these levels are very short, but it gets old, fast. Even for my favorite level, which is the carrier, it is mind-numbingly dull. It doesn't help that you're being shot at all throughout by everybody from here to Timbuktu. They try to do side activities, but these are only worth doing just for a little extra money at the end. Some of them try to also have you deal with an ethical dilemma, but the problem is that it doesn't carry over to any of the levels afterwards. One example is with the second Titanium Man fight, where he uses power generators to restore health. If you destroy the generators, the city loses its powers, and it just gets completely dropped by the next stage. It's a neat idea and concept, but they didn't have the thought to really see it through. So in most of these scenarios, you could potentially be killing thousands of people. Are we sure this guy's the hero? Also, the last few missions can suck my dick! The dial goes to 11 and it becomes a nightmare, even on easy mode. The worst level being you needing to save Pepper from AIM, and it turns into a barrage of missiles and drones that you will game over at least once. The fight with Ironmonger, while feeling long as fuck, wasn't a hassle this time, surprisingly. The bosses are just a joke in general. There's no strategy, you just fly from a distance and shoot. Gotta say they did have their moments, like with Whiplash here. Music wasn't too bad on re-listen. It's still nothing too memorable, but it's not as bad as I remember. Also, just want to clear this up since I got it wrong in the last video, but Black Sabbath's Iron Man is in this version, but it shows up for the credits. Not sure how I missed that. Last thing to mention is the one-man army missions, and I took the approach to this differently. So just a reminder of what this is, you have to destroy 80 enemies within a 10-minute time limit. I decided to play them all expecting not to like them, but in actuality these were pretty fun. A lot of threats are grouped together, so it makes it manageable to complete, and you can do it in half the time. There were points where there was a bit of dead air looking for more things to blow up, but I wasn't looking for very long. And of course, after beating each of them you unlock an armor from the comics, and these are all cool. Each of them look good aside from some pixelated textures, but one thing I wasn't aware of until now is that they all have unique weapons and preset loadouts. Just for some examples, the classic Mark I only shoots missiles instead of repulsors, and the Mark II is basically a pea shooter. Some suits are better than others, with the Hulkbuster being the worst since it can't dodge attacks and heavy weapons are likely to miss entirely. Don't worry baby, I still love you. I still think Classic and Extremis are my favorites as far as looks and firepower. Also, I wanted to mention the platform exclusivity. Fun! I mentioned this in the original video, but each version of the HD game got a special suit for that specific platform, which you can unlock by beating the game. For PS3 owners, it's the Ultimate Armor, and for 360 players, it's the Silver Centurion. Though weirdly enough, he's here in the PS3 version, so that's weird. After messing around with it, I really like the Ultimate suit. It has a super fast firing rate, and it looks a hell of a lot better than whatever we got in Avengers. Silver Centurion is good too, and if I had to rank these suits, Ultimate would be my third favorite with Silver Centurion right under that. Alright, let's close the book on this chapter and finish the video. I'm surprised how much I enjoyed coming back to Iron Man. The flight controls are still as good as ever, the combat, while being basic, I had fun with, and the suits are still great, and I actually liked getting them. I'm convinced that some elements of this game made its way over to Avengers with not as great results. As for my negative points, the story somehow got worse this playthrough, and the missions can either be boring or just plain repetitive with all the amount of shit trying to kill you. Also, just a minor nitpick, but the performance, especially in the later levels, did bug me a bit with all the stuttering and massive frame drops. No matter which version, it's still a game that I can enjoy despite its flaws, and now I enjoyed just a little bit more. If you were to ask me which version of the game to invest in, then I'd say the 360 version. I really like the Ultimate suit, but the silky smooth framerate really makes a difference. And something about using a 360 controller just feels more natural than a PS3 controller. I'd be down to play this again in the near future, maybe for an LP, and like I said before, if you see this for a very cheap price, then snag it. Hope everyone enjoyed the start of this new playlist and my other special video for reaching over 100 subscribers. I'd like to put these out in between the regular reviews, so think of these as a neat bonus for the occasion. Also off topic, but I just wanted to show off my Iron Man shirt that I wanted to wear specifically for this video. Hope everyone got the joke. Anyway, I should get back to work on whatever I'm putting out next, so hopefully that's soon enough. But until then, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves. See ya.